So, Sonnet 4, sonnet about finance and banking. No, don't go away, please don't run away, please. It's just Shakespeare being fancy and metaphorical. It's kind of related to love, I promise. Just stick around, you can pretend you're, looking up financial things. Just please, give it a shot. It's not as bad as it sounds, I promise. It's Shakespeare, it can't be that bad, surely. Unthrifty loveliness, why dost thou spend upon thyself thy beauty's legacy? Nature's bequest gives nothing, but doth lend, and being frank, she lends to those are free. Then, beauteous niggard, why dost thou abuse the bounteous largesse given thee to give? Profitless usurer, why dost thou use so great a sum of sums, yet canst not live? For having traffic with thyself alone, thou of thyself thy sweet self dost deceive. Then, how when nature calls thee to be gone, what acceptable audit canst thou leave? Thy unused beauty must be tuned with thee, which used lives the executor to be. Now, you may have noticed that Shakespeare has a bit of an obsession with the fair youth's beauty and its ability to be passed onward after death. Of course, that's only true of the first 17 sonnets, and as such the themes are very similar, which is why we get this constant reframing of the same issue, just using, several different metaphors. We had a mirror in the last sonnet, a battlefield in the sonnet before that, and this time, Shakespeare's accusing his love of being a bad financial investor. I mean, it's an interesting tactic, not one I personally would have thought of. So essentially, he says that this beauty that nature has given to you is only a loan, and you've got to be sensible how you spend it, because that loan shark that is nature, well, is going to come knocking on your door to take it back. And of course, how do we invest this beauty we have? That's right, you guessed it, by having babies. But before we dive into this lovely metaphor, I want to address something that will start to come up a bit more as we advance through the sonnets. The observant amongst you may have noticed that while I was reading this sonnet in my dulcet tones, that several lines didn't actually rhyme. Luke, you cry in righteous indignation, you told us that a Shakespearean sonnet must have an A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G rhyme scheme. All the lines should rhyme. What is this black magic? And to that I say, first of all, well done for paying attention during the introduction video. But this lack of rhyming is due to the fact that in the Elizabethan times, the English accent was massively different than it is now. There's this little idea in the public consciousness that Shakespeare sounded like Laurence Olivier back in the day.
I that am rudely stamped, and want love's majesty to strut before a wanton ambling nymph.
Be quiet, Larry. But the Elizabethan accent was on the other side of what we call the Great Vowel Shift, and this took place from around 1400 to 1700, meaning that the words that would have rhymed in Shakespeare's day no longer do, because the vowels in them have changed sounds. So, in the original pronunciation, and please excuse my terrible accent, the rhyme should read, For having traffic with thyself alone, thou of thyself thee sweet self dost deceive, in hell where nature calls thee to be gone. That incredibly long tangent aside, structurally we're working with a strictly Shakespearean sonnet here. There are 3 different questions and each quatrain resolved in a final couplet. So, I guess I should probably go through them and break down this big old metaphor. In the first quatrain, we have Shakespeare asking why he spends the beauty nature has so lent him on himself. After all, alone is not a gift, and nature, being generous, only lends to those who are also generous. So, don't waste it all preening about around the town, you idiot. Second quatrain continues in this theme. The poet asks why, having been given such brilliant beauty, you waste it like a terrible, terrible moneylender. So he then suggests in the third quatrain that the youth is fooling himself if he spends his beauty on himself, as nature will eventually, call in the debt. And if you haven't passed your beauty on before you die, it was a pretty poor investment. The couplet then suggests that if he wants to be a good old banker and ensure his beauty doesn't lie in the tomb with him, he should invest in a wife. Or at least children. It's a rather obvious metaphor, at least by, Shakespeare's standards. Positioning nature as the giver of money, or in this case beauty, and the fair youth as an investor or usurer in Elizabethan terms. Do you spend the money you've been given on short-term frivolous pursuits or invest it for a more long-term goal? I think a conundrum many of us can relate to. As I said, it's a reframing of a problem we've seen before in a different context to persuade the youth to reproduce. Romance personified. So, hopefully, I'll actually get the next sonnet out on time. Apologies, I'm just a bit hopeless with the schedule. So do like and subscribe in order to encourage me to get my act together and, be consistent. So yes, other than that, have fun, stay safe, and we'll see you for the next sonnet, hopefully next week, he said. Alack the day when one begins to beg, when the powers above thou hast to bribe, but if thou this fine channel wish to peg, then, good fellows, I implore you, subscribe. Alas, but still thou shalt not be informed if this author a tale he has to tell. My heart would thus be eternally warmed, if like cries of yore thou ring'st the bell. Last, if thou finds an item thou dost enjoy, allow me yet another deal to strike. Thine patronage I would seek to employ, therefore, fine friend, feel free to drop a like. But now we end, and I wish thee luck, and pray thou friends, forgive this rambling